December 28th, Symmes Township Trustee meeting. Appreciate you logging in. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and stand for the following invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear God, we are thankful and grateful for time with family and friends over the December holiday season. We ask you to watch over the township, including our administration and public works departments, our fire and EMS, our police, and the armed services of the United States of America over the new year and throughout 2024. Amen.
Amen.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bryant. Here. Miss Leese.
Here.
Mr. Beck.
Here. I move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Miss Leese.
Aye.
Mr. Beck.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye. No meeting minutes to approve. I move approval of disbursements warrants 82937 to 84041 and vouchers 640 to 699 totaling $690,337.05.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bryant. Aye. Miss Leese.
Aye.
Mr. Beck.
Aye.
Can I'm sorry to interrupt. Were we going to add something to the agenda
I
tonight
think
or
we're going to do that
Tuesday? Okay. I didn't know if we were amending the agenda. Okay. All right, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
No old business, so moving into new business. I make a motion to accept Jeff Isles' resignation effective December 29th, 2023.
Second.
And we need a roll call for that.
Mr. Beck.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant. Aye. Miss Leese.
Aye, and I just want to say thank you to Jeff for giving us, how many years did he give us? 13.
13.
Congratulations.
Yes.
I hope he has a great retirement.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. We very much appreciate his service to the township. I move approval of Resolution G 2023-121, resolution establishing a separate revenue fund 2042 in the UAN to account for cemetery bequest funds.
Second.
Discussion?
So during our audit process, it was found that we had incorrectly labeled one of our fund accounts. We had labeled, when we switched over from OTAS to the UAN, we had a cemetery bequest fund. And when I asked local government services how we were supposed to label it, they told me one thing, but when we had our audit recently, they told me another thing. So we need to relabel it from the 9751 to the 2042 since it is a special revenue additional cemetery fund.
Okay. Makes sense. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Bryant. Aye. Miss Leese.
Aye.
Mr. Beck.
Aye. I know we're going to have discussion, so I'll go ahead and move approval of Resolution G 2023-122, resolution imposing a moratorium for a period of 360 days on the granting of any permit following adult use cannabis operations with Symmes Township, Hamilton County, Ohio.
Second.
Discussion.
Okay, so I would like to table this just because, first of all, I want to make it clear, I'm very against cannabis use, but the voters of Symmes Township did pass it, and they did pass it overwhelmingly. So I know a moratorium is just for a short period while we get organized, but I think we should have a work session to discuss it before we do this, because there's a lot of questions. And if we would put a moratorium now, I think if we need to be better educated on this subject. This is just my thought. But if we would put a moratorium on now, if a dispensary wanted to come in, they would not consider us because we have a moratorium. So I think we need to educate ourselves. I think we have a lot of questions for our law director. So I just think we need to have a work session before we do this. And I think we should have it in January, because I don't think, I mean, I want to act fast in case we do need a moratorium, but I want to give us, I don't want to rush the subject.
Well,
That's me.
conversely, we could enact a moratorium now and rescind it at any point in time. Is that correct?
That's true.
Okay. If you found out something you wanted to do different. What is the risk between now and then of a dispensary locating in Symmes?
As the law stands right now, and this is the tricky part, and this is in part why we suggested you might want to consider a moratorium. You know, issue 2 passed at the ballot, and almost immediately the state legislature has introduced, there are at least 3 bills that I'm aware of that have been introduced that would change the law as it was passed on the ballot. And so, but none of those bills have passed. And in fact, right now, as I understand it, I think the state legislature is on a, you know, sort of their recess. Yeah. I don't know when they go back in session. So I'll answer the question, but it's only based on what the law is right now. And right now, it is, I think it's almost impossible for a dispensary to try to open up now, because part of what the law said that passed on the ballot was it has to create a whole agency in the state to create the whole application process for adult use dispensaries. You can't just come here on a zoning question and ask, can I open a retail dispensary? You have to have a license from the state, and they have, I think what the state law says is they have 9 months to get that system up and running. So if you think back to when the medical marijuana was adopted, what was that, 6 years ago, 7 years ago? Same kind of thing happened. The law passed, and then it took months before the system was actually up and running where anyone could apply for a dispensary. So as the law stands today, it's unlikely that, I mean, it's almost impossible for a dispensary to come before, if you wanted to have a work session or, you know, discuss it further next month. The reason I'm kind of qualifying all of that is one of the bills that was introduced, one of the things it proposed to do was to, and this again wouldn't have any impact here, I don't think, it would immediately allow any medical dispensary to start selling adult use to anyone. There are no medical dispensaries in the township. So, because part of the concern is there are some places where they may have medical dispensaries that, under this proposed bill, they would just convert to adult use dispensaries without having any other application process. Again, that bill hasn't passed, and it wouldn't matter because there are no medical dispensaries here anyway.
I just don't want to overreact, and then if we find out that it comes with all sorts of perks that we're out of the ballgame. You know, if we can limit, like if we can have just a district where it could be, or I just don't want to overreact.
And we can answer any of those questions that you might have.
We don't have authority to require perks and privileges for
well, we don't, because we don't know what the
no,
state
we don't
is.
anyway, because the
and
ORC doesn't give us that permission.
Well, right, but we don't know what the state is planning. And if we put a moratorium on, this is just me, and you guys, no one would look at us. If something, you know, if there was some sort of, and I am not for marijuana, I'm totally against it because I've worked in the industry for so long, but the residents overwhelmingly voted for it. So I think we have a due diligence to our residents to make an informed decision, not based off of my personal
that's fine.
thoughts.
I can tell you, under the law that passed at the ballot, the only authority that a township or a municipality would have, you can either prohibit them from being here, or actually it says you can also limit the number of them. So to your question, could we implement a zoning regulation that says they can only be in a certain zoning district? Yeah, you can. But you also have to go through the whole zoning process, you know, text amendments, zoning
Right.
commission back here.
Can I ask a question? Do we have to put it in our zoning code, or can we enact a separate resolution just for cannabis?
Okay, so if you just want to prohibit it in the township, you don't have to use a zoning authority. You could just adopt a resolution that says, under our authority of the new law, we're going to prohibit those uses. If you wanted to decide that we're not going to prohibit it completely, we're only going to permit these uses in certain districts, you'd have to go through the whole zoning process. Because then basically you're creating a new use under your zoning code and deciding which zoning districts it would be in.
Yeah.
And if that's where you want to go, at a certain point, again, that's where a moratorium would be helpful at some point. You could do a moratorium and say, nobody can do it anywhere until we get through our zoning process and decide what districts it's going to be in, if that's the path you take.
Right. And I
It's-
think we just need education.
Is it in the bill as approved that there's a limit on the number of dispensaries allowed in the state?
I think that's part of the regulations that have to be drafted,
Okay.
that they have 9 months to come up with how
Okay.
many they're going to be. And I'll tell you, just like medical marijuana, initially they said there can only be
Right.
X number of dispensaries. And then each year they look at that and decide if they need to increase that number. And they have
Okay.
over the years since
All right.
that's been in place.
And if we would move in that, we could limit how many dispensaries we have in the township, or, you know,
Yes.
we can do all of that.
You could, yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you want to have a work session, we're happy to do it. We've been studying this for
Why doesn't it
lots
be
of
in
our
January?
governmental clients,
doesn't
as you
have
can
to be in
imagine, so,
January.
Well, you said you
yeah,
wanted
we
to
can
move on.
answer whatever questions you have.
I just
Right.
want to
If the
make
state's
sure
gonna
we,
take 9 months.
yeah, it doesn't have to be in January. I
Okay.
just thought that if we're going to put a moratorium on, I'd rather have a work session and make a decision if we want a moratorium on, than instead of making a moratorium just randomly tonight. And then I'm okay with, you know, working on it a little at a time, or we can do a work session in January, February, whatever you want to schedule.
As the landscape clears a little bit and we understand what's going on at the state level,
Yeah,
then it might be more appropriate to have a work session to be brought up to speed.
sure.
on
I mean,
what's
like I said,
going on.
as we see what
Rather than
happens
rush
with any
into
of those
January.
bills, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine. And I can tell you that's what a number of communities that I'm aware of, who they've chosen to adopt a moratorium, but that's the theory is,
Yes.
let's adopt the moratorium until we see what the final version of the law is, and then we can decide what we want to do.
Other
That's
question,
one path, yeah.
other question is, will we get any money out of it if we allow cannabis use in our township as a retail sale? Or does the state
We
get
don't
everything?
have
No,
we don't
no.
have taxing authority,
Like,
so.
right, you don't have any independent taxing authority. The law details, there is I believe under the version that passed, there is a 10% tax on the sale of that. But the statute already describes exactly how that tax revenue is to be
Question.
split.
So we won't
That
get
if-
anything?
I don't believe
Does
so.
a
Okay.
municipality who has taxing authority, can they impose tax on a dispensary?
I don't believe so, because this is part of a statewide regulation, and the tax,
Thinking.
That's what I was saying.
the tax structure
Not-
is,
No, it's JED.
JED.
oh.
Is it a TIF or JED?
JED.
We would have to do a JED.
Yeah.
TIF is tax increment for me.
Yeah, I'm okay. And what was my last question?
So
Didn't
that's a
Columbia
possibility.
Township, they have a dispensary, and aren't they making money off of it?
Yeah, they have a JED with their dispensaries, but I don't know how, I'm gonna have to touch base with Mike Lemon to make sure, find out how they did that.
Well, and remember, a JED, only, the tax revenue that comes from a JED is income tax. So it's just on the people that work there. It's not a sales tax. It doesn't, it's not a percentage of the tax on what gets sold at the retail dispensary.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
typically it's a corp tax too.
Well, okay, yeah, there
But
there may be,
being-
but it's all based on income.
Right.
It's not, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, that's true.
Corporation tax, is that what you said?
A corporate income.
Yeah, usually
tax.
when you do a JED, it's both. It's a
Okay.
corporate tax of 1% or whatever you set it up, and then
Okay.
it's also an employee tax. The same as being inside a city.
Yeah.
It's just like this
But
mini
I
district.
just want to be
But
clear,
we'd have to
it's
work
not
out-
a sales tax.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. The county gets all the sales tax.
Well, the state has, as under the
Oh,
new
yes.
law, the state has determined how the sales tax is going to be split. I can tell you one of those bills that was introduced has proposed to change it from 10% to 15% and differ how they want to split it up. But we don't know, and we won't know until any of those bills
Get passed.
either get passed or die, and we see what the final landscape looks like.
Okay.
Okay.
Question.
Do you have a recommendation that we should pass a moratorium right now, even though we could rescind it at any time, or just sit?
I mean,
My question is there any downside to doing enacting a moratorium now?
so if there is a downside, and again, I'm going to base this a little bit on how when the medical marijuana stuff came through, lots of places did a moratorium, just like this. And as those companies began getting their permits, and part of their process to get their license to become a dispensary was they had to say where they were going to be. And so a lot of places started getting calls as part of that process to say, have you prohibited this? Have you done a moratorium? Because if you have, then
You're off the list.
they don't consider you. Again, that doesn't really happen until the licensing application process. So, yeah, I mean, if there's any downside, it's that you might, you might, I don't want to say scare off, but yeah, you might have an impact on whether those businesses would even want to consider being here.
Okay. Then I'd like to move that we table
Well,
this.
Jody already did,
Oh, she did?
I moved, yeah.
but we haven't seconded. I'll second it. Any other
Roll call?
discussion?
Yeah.
Roll call?
I'd just like to say, when we do the work session, I'd also like to hear from EMS and the sheriff,
Oh, for sure.
so we can kind of
Okay.
get everybody's
Yeah, and I like to
perspectives.
hear from other townships that have dispensaries
Yes.
in them. And
Yeah.
if there's additional crime, if there's been any problems, like Columbia Township is a perfect model for us, because they're about the same size, right?
Oh, they're
smaller.
they're smaller than us,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Ms. Lees?
Aye.
Mr. Beck?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I move approval of Resolution G 2023-123, resolution adopting the final revenue and expenditures for Symmes Township for fiscal year 2023.
Second?
Discussion. Anything to note?
No, the only thing we really had to change was the fact that we didn't get all our TIF money that we thought we were gonna get, and we didn't get the opioid money like we thought we were gonna get. So everything else was just a little bit under, a little bit over, so it's nothing shocking.
Is there a reason why we didn't get that money?
The TIF money was because they hadn't approved our extension request, and the
We'll get it next year.
opioid money was because the state originally told us we were gonna get X, and then now they've taken it all away pretty much, and now we just get trickles. And we're just getting this little dinky portion now instead of, this bigger pot of money that we thought we were gonna get.
We got 3,000 or 4,000 up front and then hundreds now.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
pathetic.
Seriously. And I think
I guess they needed it for something.
when the fire department really was gonna use it for counseling and so on and so forth, right? But now
They're using it for exercise equipment.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Beck?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Lees?
Aye.
I move approval of the following expenditures and authorization for the township administrator to sign any necessary contracts, agreement, or paperwork for the following. A, change the following appropriations. Lighting District Fund, Fund Number 2901-310-360-0000, increase of $5,000 for a total of $145,000. B, expenditures, $3,860 for Cummins for repairs to Tower 61. C, expenditures then and now, $3,623.19 for Duke Energy for lighting district payments. And D, expenditures then and now, $43.73 for CBTS for a phone bill.
Second.
Discussion.
We underestimated our lighting district fund.
Yep.
By 5,000, or well,
Yep.
by $3,623.19.
Yeah, because it went up, I guess because of the electricity cost went up.
I
We
can
lost
I can
that.
understand that.
It
yeah.
started in, what was it, June or something like that,
Okay.
where the increase doubled.
But this is to pay the bills now, and this will show up on the tax bills for our residents next year,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so we get the money back.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I'd say it's pretty darn good, based on what we expected, and then you get some increase in electrical costs. Makes
Yeah.
sense to me. A lot better than we did there for a couple of years.
yep.
Right. Thank you, Joe. Any other discussion?
This $3,860 for Cummins for Tower 61, is that the thing that we talked about, the oil pan
This is
scenario?
additional. So this Cummins, well, they had to, I guess in this whole process of whatever happened, it blew a hole in the radiator. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
guessing a fan broke and blew parts into the radiator.
Okay.
So they wanted $3,860 just to pull the radiator out. And then, now they have diagnosed that yes, we need a new radiator. So then we had to go and buy a new radiator from Heritage Fire Equipment, and that's another $3,000. So,
Okay.
yeah.
What I was getting at was a question I asked of Chief Rose when he was in here about, is this going to take care of it? And I'm
Nope.
wondering if this is more.
It was more. It always is.
Okay. Thank
Any
you.
other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Lees?
Aye.
Mr. Beck?
Aye. No executive session this evening, so I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Roll call,
Third.
please.
I third.
Ms. Lees?
Aye.
Mr. Beck?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Happy New Year.
Yeah,
We'll
Happy
see you
New
in
Year,
the-
everyone.
See you in the bicentennial year.
Yes, how exciting.